Minutes for the Finance Committee last.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda and the minutes.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Virginia, seconded by Doak. All in favor signify by saying, Jeff. Okay,
I knew who you
all right. I saw two hands up about the same time. All right, motion to accept. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. First thing on the agenda.
We'll start with the
Administrator, sir.
certainly. You have your monthly finance report in front of you. You also have the memo from Mr. Kunish kind of giving a financial update. So I will start first with the financial update as opposed to the monthly finance report. As you see in his report, we collected for our last payment was $93,588, which is $473,545 year to date. And if we compare that to last year to this date was $478,072, so a little less than $5,000. And I want to make the committee aware that we're talking about the months of April and May, so we are talking the COVID months. So in that respect, we're looking very good from a sales tax standpoint. In that same respect, we are looking at the property taxes. And again, year to date, this year to date compared to last year, we have actually had more people pay their property taxes this year than last year. So again, another bit of positive news. Small downturn comes from interest earnings. Because of COVID and the like, we have seen now the interest rates on investments take a downturn, but we will still see how we're doing year to end. The treasurer will be doing a quarterly report. The second quarter, she'll be doing that next month. As for departments, again, doing year to date and seeing where we are, we have a couple small items from a revenue standpoint. From the Sheriff's Department, the School District of Luxembourg-Casco had requested a reduction in the cost of their contract due to the school being closed because of the pandemic. We did not have a school resource officer in the schools. I know that Public Safety and Justice had approved that request. I believe, Jeff, that does need to go to county board, correct?
What was the dollar amount? I'm sorry.
It would be over 20,000 because it would be more than half of the school year. I don't think that it necessarily has to come here because it was a contract. Yes, it's a reduction in money, but the issue is a contract request. So I think that would go to the county board for approval, which I would recommend. Again, if we didn't have a school resource officer in the school, we didn't provide the service, I don't know that we should necessarily then be charging the school district for a service that we did not provide. As for human services, their charges for billable service over the last few months has decreased. Again, you had clients within their homes, and therefore the ability to provide those services was more difficult. We had a Human Services Committee meeting yesterday, and I did inform the committee that, yes, we will be taking action to try to bring up those billable hours and those revenues. So we'll be seeing that as we go over time. As for the health and dental self-insured funds, which we'll be hearing about today as well from Ms. Jagelski from Horton, is that our claims have been down, which is not a surprise. People weren't allowed to come into clinics and the like, and there's so many hours that you can be open when they reopened. So from a year standpoint, I believe that we will see a downturn in claims over premiums. And then last but not least, there are a number of different grants that are being made available to the county. Public health has several grants. If we total them all up, they'll come out to about $225,000 that is available. Some for contact tracing, for other staffing, as well as equipment, including PPE and the like. We also have routes to recovery, which for the county is about $337,000. More than likely, we'll be looking at some IT purchases to allow for more remote work and video conferencing. And then there is federal money through FEMA, where FEMA will pay for 75% of eligible costs. The county will cover 25%. We're not sure that we will be doing much, if anything, through FEMA, at least at this present time. If there's no questions regarding Mr. Kunish's memo, I'll just quick go through the monthly finance report. As you can see from those 5 pages, there's nothing that stands out in any large respect. Mostly it is, for the most part, business as usual. So from a monthly finance report, I really don't have anything to add with that. Are there any questions either on the memo or the finance report? Doak?
We spoke yesterday, but I just wanted to reiterate that you provided some explanation for the shortfall in human services, but how can we get a similar explanation for the shortfall, or again, how do we keep track of these where we're having a significant shortfall? I mentioned highway, human services, we already talked, the sheriff, and then this miscellaneous department. Because those right now revenues total about a shortfall of about $2 million.
Right. Partially with the sheriff is, again, waiting for payment from the school district. So you'll have part of that where they hadn't made a payment. So part of this stuff is timing. So from the sheriff's standpoint, I believe that would be the school contract, and so I think that's where you'd see a part there. And what was the other one, Supervisor Baker?
So again, I have 132,000 short on revenue, and I think you also said part of that explanation was fewer prisoners.
Correct.
So my push is more, should we expect that, like, fewer prisoners may go right to the end of the year?
It could possibly, yes.
In which case there are no levers to pull to fix that problem. Should we be prepared for that rather than say, have people keep reassuring us that it's going to be okay, and then at the end of the year we have a fairly decent shortfall on all of those? I just wanted to, it's 6 months into the year. How can we address those?
And we can try to do that. And I think probably the most difficult part with a report like this is, sorry, let me try that in English. The most difficult part is that a report like this does a month snapshot in time, and therefore it's very difficult to provide what would be called history. So depending on the receipt of payments or the payment of certain expenses, there are times that those will happen in certain times of the year. And so therefore, revenue may look short at one time, and the reason why, because we don't get a payment. Expenses may look high because there are plenty of times where we make payments up front early in the year, and then that goes down over time. Again, for me, because of all the different departments, I'll be honest, I'm not as versed as Mr. Kunish would be as to where those historical blips, both from peaks and valleys, would be. So what I can do is I can talk to Mr. Kunish, and at the next Finance Committee meeting, we can try to address some of those specific things for you, Supervisor Baker, if that would be okay.
That was less about it was more about how do we, as a committee, understand what those individual departments are doing to address it, rather than get shocked at the end of the year. And that I was wondering after our discussion yesterday whether it's something like, if we are this far off, a sizable number, does that committee owner, or I'm sorry, that department owner, should that department owner be here at the meeting explaining?
That can be up to the Finance Committee if they want to do that. Again, and I rely on on Mr. Kunish in the respect that, again, from the historical standpoint of him having 5 years of watching this month to month to month,
He may be able to explain it
he'll
himself.
know those
Okay.
historical things, and therefore, if there is a concern, he then usually does bring that to my attention, of which then we have a conversation with the department head. But you would know that, and me just saying that doesn't necessarily, from where you'd be sitting, well, the administrator says it's okay. Well, then what you're doing, and I understand where you would be coming, is while yes, you want to have faith in your administrator, you also want to verify, trust but verify. So therefore,
Okay,
I'll have Mr. Kunish come and
We're gonna
talk about
talk,
some
yep.
of those as well.
okay, good.
I'm sorry, Chairman Olson.
Yeah, I appreciate Supervisor Baker's suggestion. I don't know that we've really done that in the past, but if there is a department where, we've always relied on the information from Mr. Kunish, which he is extremely, he does an outstanding job. But I think that if there are departments where he is seeing some challenges potentially, it could be very helpful to have the department head come in and shed further light on that and what possible solutions might be, rather than doing as we've sometimes been inclined to do in the past and kind of wait until the problem is a little bit further down the road, further down the stream. So I think that's an outstanding suggestion.
And as administration, we have absolutely no problem with that. That is part of the purpose of this committee, is if they see an issue and therefore want to bring a department in to have questions regarding that, that is absolutely within your purview. Again, the part that we try to do from our standpoint is, if we see something, we make you aware of it when we see it, and then if it continues to get worse, again, to make the committee aware, and here are some measures that we may be taking, but again, the committee, they themselves may want to hear and address that department head as well.
Well, and I guess the observation I would make is, one example is, Mr. Kunish did an outstanding job of pointing out in human services at times past when there was going to be a pretty significant budgetary issue, but he did a very good job of pointing that out. But as far as, solutions to that, that's kind of outside of his scope.
Correct.
And I think in those times it could have been helpful at times in the past. So that, I think it's an excellent.
And I don't, absolutely, Mr. Chair, and that's where at times it is, I won't say difficult, but at times it's challenging, because as the administrator, you want to have some faith in your department heads and the like, and therefore you try to push them to make some changes. There are times that changes can be made. There are times that changes can't be made. But regardless, at least from the human services standpoint, that is why I have had no inkling whatsoever to replace the human services director at this present time. I'd rather step in where I'm at, try to get that financial ship afloat.
I think we should probably keep a very close eye on the current human services director.
And I would have to agree, because from what I hear, he is a real pain in the keister. So
I didn't say that.
that's okay. If you would be willing, Mr. Chair, I'd move on to the medical and dental financial reports.
You want to do overtime, or, yeah, go ahead, do the mental good dental.
Again, these are very simple. Again, you will be hearing these in the presentation from Horton. As you can see, for 2020, for medical, we're at 87.33%, which is extremely good, but again, no surprise. From the dental standpoint, we're at 77.28%. Again, very good, but no real surprise due to COVID. And if we look at our large claimants, we are only at 4 at this present time. Again, that will continue to go up as we go later in the year, but that compared to last year is again significantly less than what we would have had at this time. Again, a lot of these numbers are being affected due to the pandemic, and therefore the inability of people to go and get procedures done. but that again will start to go back up. But I think at least for year 2020, and if I'm incorrect, we'll hear from Horton otherwise, but I think that for us in the year 2020, we will be looking at I'll call it a surplus in quotes for those two funds. Are there any questions on either of those self-insured funds? If not, then Mr. Chair, I'll move on to overtime.
All right.
Again, if we look at the overtime report, in the past, I used to make comments numerous times when we were talking about the Sheriff's Department and the Jail Division. I do not have that same type of news to share that I had from years past. With the new schedule and with things going the way they have been, especially with the what I want to call it, the side schedule that has happened, the amount of overtime that we're seeing that I used to see in the past is greatly reduced. We are seeing an increase in overtime for the Highway Internal Service Fund, but part of the reason for that is they have slated to do more projects for this year than what they had done in previous years. Most of that money to pay for overtime has already been budgeted in. Plus, remember that not 100% of overtime comes onto the county, as the county does do work for our municipal and state clients. And therefore, if there's overtime involved in those projects, then the county is paid that overtime as well. Otherwise, there is nothing for me on the overtime report that really jumps out. Are there any questions on the overtime report?
Okay. Voting machines.
Yep. So as for voting machines, and I had put the minutes of the executive committee meeting into your packet, talking about how the executive committee has approved the purchase of 15 voting machines, and that the county will pay on behalf of the local governments 50% of the cost of the machines. That does not include any of the maintenance or one-time setup fees. Mr. Kunish had put together then what the projected cost would be, and we're looking at an amount of $54,383. That is, the voting machines are actually in the 2021 capital improvement plan. We will be ordering them this year. I forget if we will still receive them this year, but this is money that has been budgeted from the 2021 budget. So if they were to come and need payment still in 2020, then we would just ask that that money be transferred out of the general fund, a fund transfer, and to pay for the voting machines. So if I were to be recommending a motion, the motion would be to approve a fund transfer of in the amount of, I'll call it $55,000, just to make it round and even, to pay for the voting machines to come from the general fund.
How many machines is that going to be?
That would be 15 machines. The county has one. The other 14 go to the cities, towns, and villages. And the cities, towns, and villages would be required to pay for 50% of the cost of the machines. And the reason that the county clerk had asked that we do that now is that by buying them in bulk, not only from ourselves, but with other counties, the usual cost of a machine is $8,400, and instead the cost would be $6,600 a machine. So there would be a significant savings.
Is this a state mandated? We have to buy them. Does the state require it?
The state does not require the county to buy the machines for each municipality. Part of the reason why, because as each local government, they are in charge of their own elections. But from a consistency standpoint, a uniformity standpoint, it's best that all cities, towns, and villages have the same machine, both from a programming standpoint, a training standpoint, and the like. In the past, the county has at times paid for the entire cost of the machine. At other times, they've done portions. And that was the discussion for the executive committee as to what they felt was in the best interest of the county to do. And the executive committee had decided that the county, to foster this uniformity, would pay for half of the machine, but the cities, towns, and villages would pay for the other half of the machine, any setup costs, and any maintenance costs.
And I realize it's not our decision about the,
Right.
I was just trying to get some information for background. The decision to have voting machines as opposed to using paper ballots, that is a county decision or is that a state mandate?
I'm unsure on that respect. Tom, did you?
There's a difference between a voting machine. These machines that the county's buying are tabulating machines.
Do they process the paper ballots? Is that?
Process the paper ballots.
Okay, that was the other question I had. So, and then, okay, so that's helpful.
I don't-
That's actually a labor saving thing for us and an accuracy thing.
I don't
Okay.
know if every district has an individual voting machine where you can actually go and vote on a. Like
I know our township does, and that's what I was wondering, is that a choice that the township or somebody makes to, because they think it's labor saving, on the other hand, the tabulating machines
tabulating
really
thing is
do,
the
yeah.
thing, right.
Didn't Jamie make the comment that we would be giving up electronic voting with these?
The machines have a screen on them, and it works with like a controller similar to like if you're playing a video game. So if someone, like a disabled person, needs to use the screen, they can use the controller or like a remote controller on TV to vote. But it's also a tabulating machine that you run the ballots through. It's like 2-in-1. And the other reason she picked this one is because they are working on an upgrade for a smart or a touch screen. So, or they're hoping in the next couple of years that'll be complete, and then they'll be able to bolt on this touch screen to this machine. I don't know what the cost of that will be, but that's why she picked this particular unit.
So like a video game, is that to help the?
Scott, did the municipalities all agree to this? Are they aware that they're going to have the expenditure?
The county clerk has made them aware. County clerk, prior to coming to the executive committee, had conversations with the local clerks about new machines, and she had said to them, it would be up to the county as to whether they would provide any financial support or not, and so therefore she didn't make any promises. Since the vote of the executive committee, I believe she has therefore communicated that this is what the executive committee has recommended.
One more question. How old are the machines we're replacing? Do we know?
I honestly don't know, Mr. Baker. I do know that, from my understanding, it would only be a couple more years before that they would no longer maintain
I
them.
saw that. I just wondered, are we getting good value for this? It's a chunk of money. Do they last for 15 years, or are we doing these every 5 years?
From the historical standpoint, it's definitely not every 5 years. As for exactly the lifespan of these machines, that I'm unsure of, but I know it would not be that short.
Okay.
Any
So
more
if the
questions?
chairman's looking for a motion to authorize the expenditure from the general fund for $55,000 for the purchase of the tabulation machines, I would make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to that. Good. Second by
I'll make that
Virginia?
second.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Just a question.
Yes.
If we're taking it out of the general fund this year, are we going to be putting that money back into the general fund in 2021 when it's in the capital outlay budget?
What would happen then is we would not have to put as much money into the capital outlay budget, and so therefore any additional money could then go back to the general fund, yes.
Any more questions?
I should clarify, it could or will go back to the general fund.
If the committee wants it to will, then it will.
Because I guess my motion is with the intent that we're getting reimbursed for the machines all but one
Correct.
50%. So 50% of that expenditure will go back into the general fund.
Yeah, if you see what happens is that the total outlay would be and this is on this sheet here, the total outlay is 122,745. If the municipalities pay their portion, that would be 68,362, which means that the county's portion for its machine and the 50% of the other machines is 54,383.
So that's actually our,
That would be our portion, yes.
so then I guess just to clarify what Mr. Romden initiated with that and the going back to pay back the general fund, if the monies had been budgeted for 21, then I guess at that time that money would go back to satisfy the general fund exchange now, correct?
Yes, if that's the intention of the committee, then that's what happens.
Okay, thank you.
Are we going to buy these before we get agreement from the municipalities to pay their 50%?
From the motion that was passed by the executive committee, that there has to be an agreement between the county and those local municipalities. So let's say that there's no agreement. I'm going to assume that they would not get their machine until that time. And I can tell you that that is a powerful lever in the respect that in the past, and this is a kind of a side note, Supervisor Baker, is it was a few years ago that the county had required local municipalities to pay to the county a fee regarding the state voter registration work. And I had received a couple calls from some municipalities saying that they weren't going to pay the fee. And I respectfully said, that is completely your choice not to pay the fee, but then your clerk will have to do all the voter registration work, which your clerk will be calling you and saying that the amount of work that's required, it would be astronomical. So the work and the what do I want to call it? The nuisance of having not having a new machine is actually going to be worse than if they were to pay the fee. And I think they very much know that they're going to be required to pay half. And while they may not necessarily like it, I think they will pay it. But again, there would be an agreement. If they don't sign the agreement, they don't get the machine.
Okay.
Any other questions? Did you want who took notes on this?
I am.
Okay, did you want to restate that motion?
The motion by Supervisor Vollenweider and seconded by Supervisor Haskey is to approve a transfer from the general fund in the amount of $55,000 for the purchase of voting machines, with the understanding that in the 2021 budget that $55,000 that was transferred from the general fund would then be would be put back. And I'll find a better word than put back, but will be transferred back into the general fund. Was that the intent, Supervisor Vollenweider?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I like put back better, but yeah.
Okay, everybody understood it? Any more questions? There be no more questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
All right. Mr. Chair, if I may, I would like to introduce to this committee Kelly Jagelski. She is with the Horton Group. Horton Group has been our insurance consultant for I'm not even sure how many years. They've been here since before I came. All I can say is that with the work that Horton has done for us, not just from the insurance standpoint, but other help, Horton has been invaluable to help me to do my job and for Paul to do his job. The monthly reports that you see regarding the health and dental claims was done because of our work with Horton and Horton's ability to get us that information. Ms. Jagelski, and Dan Mongovin is another gentleman that eventually you will meet. He is on vacation at this present time, so you will see him in the near future. But Ms. Jagelski will then go through kind of what our claims history has been, where we're looking for the future. She will also give a summary as to a cost-saving program that we just started a
paid claims on the plan. We subtract out any of the reimbursements that the plan receives, so amounts above the specific deductible under the stop loss. We factor in a trend figure and then get to a projected claim number. At this point, we're not anticipating any lasers. A laser, just to remind everyone, is if the stop loss carrier decides that one person has a much higher risk for claims for next year, they can put a higher specific deductible, meaning the county's liability on that one individual would be higher. At this point, we're not expecting that. We look at the expected claims then for the next renewal. We do make some assumptions as far as the fixed costs. If you look to the right, we show that we're expecting, for the purposes of this calculation, the admin costs to go up about 3%, the stop loss costs to go up around 15%, and the aggregate fees to go up approximately 5%. Once all of that is factored in, we compare it to what the income would be if we didn't make any changes to the rates. And at this point, it's showing a 3.5% increase for next year. Primarily, that's trend right now because we've got about 7.9% going in for trend. But we'll just have to carefully monitor what those claims look like and if they continue to run low as a result of COVID. Again, most of this is trend. As we get closer, we'll have a lower trend number. Any questions on the actual renewal projection at this point? All right, the next page is primarily just backup information. I won't spend any time on that, but it gives you an idea what the stop loss reimbursements have been by month, as well as the claims by month for the medical and the dental plans. So you can see where that data for the rolling 12 months came from. The next page gives you a history for 2019, and it's just showing you what the claims were at 50% of the stop loss level, or the 27.5. We had a number of claims that ended up being over the stop loss level, and you'll see the percentage of the specific on the right. So basically 10 claims came in above that, that specific number for calendar year 2019. For 2020, I believe this is through May, so I apologize. That date up at the top says April, but it is through May. We have 4 claimants that are showing at that 50% point or over the $27,500. We don't have anybody that's over the specific yet for that 5-month period. But again, we continue to kind of watch these to see what's going on, looking at notes and things like that as far as the claims are concerned. The number of claims that are over the stop loss does have a significant impact on what that stop loss renewal is going to be for the following year. So right now we're cautiously optimistic. We went through the same process on the dental. We look at a rolling 12 months of claims. We look at the trend figure. We go through, we look at what the admin fees are going to be. Again, we're estimating an admin fee increase of approximately 3%. At this point, when we compare what we believe the projected claims to be in comparison to the funding, if we weren't to change the dental rates, right now it's showing negative 6.8. At this point, we're not recommending a decrease. We believe the significance of the decrease is primarily, if you look down at the bottom left of that page, the April and May claims are quite a bit lower than what the other months are because a lot of the dental offices were closed as a result of COVID. So April in particular, we only had $1,300 roughly of claims in comparison to other months where we're ranging from roughly $7,000 to $18,000. And even May was at $6,400. At this point, I would say we'd be leaning closer to a flat increase on the dental. I don't know that we would be making that negative adjustment, but we'll want to see a couple of additional months come in, or at least one additional month come in, and then we'll likely make an adjustment for COVID. We do have a couple of pages of loss ratio information on the dental. Again, a lot less expenses there. You're really looking at an admin cost and you're looking at the claims costs as opposed to the premium equivalent rates that we've set. In calendar year 2019, for every dollar we were paying in or that was set for those budgeted rates, we were paying out roughly $1.05. So that's the way that we ended up for calendar year 2019. On the next page for 2020, again, we've got data through May, and you can see those 2 months that are much, much lower than the first 3 months of the year. The total loss ratio at this point is 77.2%. And as for the medical, the loss ratios across the bottom are indicated. With the dental fund being significantly lower than the overall cost of the medical plan, it can easily, those loss ratios can go up and down a little bit just based on a few $1,000s difference in claims. So you'll see it does jump a little bit from year to year, but it is, again, running stable for the current year. We had been asked a question about the administrative rates historically. We did put some information in there. It will skew a little bit. We had a change in the plan year for the purposes of the admin renewals and stop loss renewals. where it used to run on a June through May time period. We were able to change that to calendar year in 2018 to run consistent with when we're running the open enrollment, and so that all the renewals are coming through at the same time. So if you look at the difference in the period when we changed from a short time period to a calendar year, you'll see a big jump, but otherwise there's been quite a bit of stability as far as how the plans have been running. And I know we didn't get into multi-year history on reimbursements, but Humana's been a very good vendor partner for the county. There's been a lot of years that they paid out a lot more in stop-loss reimbursements than they took in a premium. And even in those years, we didn't see really significant increases in stop-loss, which would be likely with other carriers. The next page is the program Scott was talking about through Direct Path. Direct Path, to put it in layman's terms, I guess, is a program that helps employees be good consumers or participants be good consumers. It allows you for a lot of those things that you can schedule. I'm going to get a knee replacement. I'm going to get a hip replacement. I need to get an mammogram or something like that. You can submit some information to them. They'll look at 2 or 3 different providers, look at the quality, look at the cost, and then provide the member with a report. If I get a report of the low cost, a medium cost, and a high cost provider, and I elect to go to that low cost provider, the member can get a 50% reimbursement for that actual savings up to $500. The county is receiving basically the difference in that. So if you look at this, we're paying, we've got calendar year 2018, 2019, and then we've got data through June for 2020. The admin fees are roughly $6,000 a year. The identified savings, that would be if every single person that submitted the claim in went to the lowest cost provider. On the employer side, we could have saved roughly $90,000 for those first couple of years. The employee could have saved a little over $10,000. And then you look at the actual savings. For spending $6,150 in fees, we're getting a $45,000 savings from the employer side in that first year. In the second year, it was about $74,000. And we're already at $37,000 for 6 months of the current year, with employees getting between $2,600 and again already $3,800 for the current year. The dollars in rewards paid as a whole are listed. It talks a little bit about the utilization. Direct Path's average utilization is roughly 16 to 20%. We've had well over 100% utilization for the first 2 years, and even with a 6-month time period, we've had 75% utilization.
Kelly, if I may, this has been a tremendous success story that Horton had brought forward to us. So just for the years of 2018 and 2019, those 2 calendar years, not including 2020, if our administrative costs for the 2 years come out to roughly $12,350, and you include the rewards that we pay to our employees for taking part in the program of $18,681, it's just a little bit over $31,000 as a quote-unquote cost to the county. But then if you go from the savings standpoint, we have an actual savings of just to the county, not even to the employee themselves that would receive some savings due to copays. The county has saved over $119,000. So to pay out $31,000 to get over $119,000 is something that is fantastic. And again, this was something brought to us from Horton, and it continues to go very well. I get monthly reports of folks that are taking this, and we can tell it does well when I get reports, and the reports are of employees getting rewards. And there are times that they're getting rewards of only $10. But what they're doing is they're choosing the lowest cost, a lower cost option. So while it saves us, while we're giving them $10, we're saving more than that. So this has been very successful in the respect of our employees being very good healthcare consumers and doing a good job of looking at those costs, but also weighing it towards the quality of that care as well. So the reports that they receive isn't just about costs, it's also about the quality of care that they would receive. I'm sorry to have interjected.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Scott, for
I
the
do have a
additional
question.
details. Yes.
How do we get a utilization percentage higher than 100%? Can you explain that number?
It just means more people. It could mean that somebody's using the program more than once.
Oh, okay.
So when they're going through and they're counting, maybe I had 3 procedures during the year, or it could be adding the dependents and the additional participants in the household.
And I know that that's the case because, again, looking at these reports, there are times that we're putting, there's one employee that's getting 3 different rewards checks or rewards because they had 3 different procedures of which they costed that out. So again, just another indication of the success of the program and the acceptance by the employees.
Who goes out and competitively shops?
Direct Path is an outside firm that does that based on.
Okay, that's their job, okay.
Yeah. They're using quality data from Leapfrog and some other firms. Yes.
How do they, I guess I don't know exactly how to phrase this, but if you have a series of estimates for a procedure, how do they regulate, you could have a procedure done and have a bad experience, and Jeff could have an experience done with the same provider and have a bad experience. Do they track this information and see what the quality of the procedures are, or how do they?
The qualities
do they
come.
weed some of these people out that aren't as good as.
Yeah, the quality is.
Might have a low cost, but the procedure might not be very good.
Yeah, they're actually looking at both. The quality comes from outside firms like Leapfrog and some of the other vendors that are out there that are studying the data on a regular basis. So they're not the ones actually taking the data specific from Kewaunee County employees. They're studying all the data that gets provided on an annual basis from each of these providers, in addition to the cost data based on the actual pricing out there. So there are outside third parties that are collecting that quality data that's getting combined with the cost information and the recommendations. There are some other things that the firm does. We focus mostly on the quality, but they're also out there from an employee. Employees can go to them for questions on their various plans. They can help to find providers. They can help them on the drugs. They can help them with open enrollment questions. So there's a lot of other things that they do. We focus on the part that has the return on investment because I think that's the part that the employees primarily focus on, but it is kind of a comprehensive program that covers a number of different things. The virtual visits or telemedicine through Doctors on Demand is another thing that I just wanted to touch on briefly. I know that the county's been doing a really good job of encouraging participants to utilize the virtual visits. And I think that that was probably, we will see this go up through the COVID challenges with a lot more media coverage of the virtual visits. A lot of the providers weren't able to see people any other way other than the virtual visits. But if we look back in 2019, we had a full calendar year. We had 19 different members that utilized the virtual visits or the telemedicine. In the year before that, so 2018, we had 13 individuals utilizing that. If we skip to 2020, we only had 5 months of data and we had 8 people utilizing. Again, it varies quite a bit from month to month and the things that are going on. It did show the prior, which I think is the prior 5-month period, I think that it was looking at. But I'm expecting these numbers to go up as we get additional data and throughout the year. The biggest thing with the virtual visits is, generally speaking, once you can get somebody to do the registration, which is the tricky part, you have to go in and answer questions just like you would when you go to a doctor for a first time to make sure that there aren't any allergies or things like that. if you can get people to utilize the virtual visit for the first time, I've found very few people that have not continued to use it. Or once I've used it, I'm telling my family about it. I know that the county has done a good job of providing testimonials and things like that to people. And I know we've talked about incentives as well for the program, but this is something that the amount of savings that you can get on average is roughly $500 is what they figure, because a lot of those virtual visits would have been maybe a $1,600 emergency room visit. Some of them would have been an urgent care visit, which could be $300 or more. Others could be a regular office visit, which might be $200, and the cost of the doctor on demand coverage is approximately $50, the total cost.
And if I may, and this is where, not at this meeting, but when we do the renewal of the insurance in September, I would like to make a recommendation to the committee about doing a financial incentive. As Kelly had said, just to give a quick thumbnail as to how this would work. If someone makes an office visit to a general practitioner, the average cost for a general practitioner for an office visit is roughly about $240. So if the employee does their $25 copay, or let's even make it a specialist and they do their $250 copay, well, then the county is on the hook, on average, for about $200 for each of those office visits. Now, so if they do telemedicine, the county's cost is $50 roughly. And what had happened in the past, a prior finance committee had approved that there would be no copay for a telemedicine visit, where before they would have had to pay a copay. Now, to do it as an incentive, we have no copay for a telemedicine visit. I'd like to take it at least just one step farther. And what I'd like to do for consideration, again, I'm not asking for action today, I would prefer it in September, is I would like to do a financial kind of reward similar to Direct Path. That what we would do is for the first, and I like the magic of 3, don't ask me why, it's just what I had done, is we would pay the employee for the first 3 telehealth visits. First one gets them registered, the second one gets them used to, and the third one I would hope would have them sold. And so even if we paid them, let's say $50 for their first 3, the county is still better off. Why? Because if they would have went to the office or to urgent care or to the emergency room, the $50 that we paid that employee doesn't even come close to what the county would have to pay if they went to their doctor as an office visit. And the only reason why I'm thinking of 3 is they have now had a pattern of experience regarding telehealth, and therefore there would be some comfort doing it. So again, in September, not right now, I would be making a recommendation to the Finance Committee that we authorize the payment for the first 3 telehealth visits to employees that therefore register and go through Doctors on Demand, the telemedicine part. So again, I see if we were to have the same type of utilization that we have for Direct Path that we would have for telemedicine, I think that the savings to the county would be extremely significant.
So Scott, on that note, there would be ways then of tracking that, and your suggestion would be 3 visits, 3 paid visits, for example, at $50 per virtual visit per employee, or would each of their family members get that same incentive?
To be honest, either way for us, I'm willing to do any member that's within the health plan. So if that meant a child, if that meant a spouse, I'd still be okay with it, because again, that telemedicine visit is actually cheaper than if they go to the office visit, the urgent care, the other. The reason why I do the 3 in the payment is it gets them used to doing it. They are now comfortable doing it. And the $150 for the first 3 visits, I'm going to make that up in 2 additional. In fact, I make that up with the very first visit that they do, almost. So
One-
again, but that's up to the committee. But to me, it then gets employees into a pattern of using this service, which provides some significant savings.
One other quick thing to add, Scott's been talking about this for a couple of years, maybe doing the incentives. United Healthcare actually just implemented something as a part of their wellness program this year to incentivize at least that first telehealth visit. So it is something that even the carriers are recognizing is a positive thing to be incentivizing.
And what I'm looking at because of, and Kelly and Horton has, as well as Direct Path, has made comments about Kewaunee County's employees' participation in the Direct Path program, and how that financial incentive has been a big motivator of our employees to be better healthcare consumers. Again, to me, that, and it's my own personal feeling, it's up to the committee, that extra $50 for the first 3 times is a small price if we get the employees to accept and make this a regular part of how they do their health care. I don't have anything else on my end. Kelly, were there any questions? I'm not trying to preempt. Are there any other questions or concerns?
Can you do your routine physical through tele?
Some of the providers were talking about that with some of the younger children during this process, not so much through Doctors on Demand, but like Aurora. I don't know that that would be my recommendation because, again, they're not getting any of the blood tests or any of those things that you would typically do. But I know for infants, they were doing a little bit of that through the COVID challenge. But I think moving forward, that's probably not going to be likely.
And it's surprising the types of procedures that can actually be done through telehealth, especially with some of your primary care physicians. If there are certain things that this is a typical ailment, you know what's going to happen. You actually go to the doctor and you know what they're going to prescribe you, the whole bit. Well, a lot of that then, why have to gas up your car, drive a half an hour to Green Bay, come back, when this can be done through telehealth, the prescription can be done through telehealth, and you never have to leave Algoma, Kewaunee, Luxembourg, the county. So
Just one quick example of the telehealth. We had gone to Texas before they decided to shut everything down again, but we happened to be visiting friends in Texas, and I had a sinus infection while I was there. I get 2 or 3 of them a year. I know what the symptoms are. I was able to call from their house, do a telemedicine visit. They called the prescription into the local pharmacy. I was able to pick it up there, and instead of having to wait to get in to see a doctor or to try to figure out who I would even see in Texas, I was able to get started on that before I had to fly back, which was very, very helpful.
Okay. Any questions? Thanks much, Kelly.
thank you,
Appreciate it.
Kelly.
Look forward to seeing you again in September or before. Okay,
Number 8.
broadband.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So as a discussion item, I know that there had been some questions as well as with the and just a quick update, and Mr. Wisnicki will correct me if I'm wrong. We still have not received the PSC documents for the broadband expansion grant. Therefore, because of that information not being available, Chairman Olson has wisely canceled the July County Board meeting. Again, as soon as we get that information, we will be forwarding that on to all county board members. But from a finance committee standpoint, there would be some questions as to how we would move forward financing the broadband expansion project. There's a couple different options that could be done. One could be the issuance of debt, whether that would be actual issuance of bonds or notes. We could also do a loan through a local financial institution. The other option would be to not issue debt. We have our Economic Development Fund that has approximately $1.4 million within it. Therefore, we could finance that project through those funds. From the memo that you're seeing from Mr. Kunish, $1.1 million in funds. We do have the funds available in our Economic Development Fund to finance this project. We know that from the loan agreement that we would have with Bug Tussle that they have agreed to pay 3% on the money that we would be putting forward. So over the course of a 12-year period, that would generate us approximately $197,000. If we were to issue debt and assume that that we would receive 0.5% above whatever our costs to issue would be, that would provide us roughly about $31,000 over 12 years. So therefore, from an interest earnings standpoint, that's a difference of about over $160,000. To just say it that way would not be providing the whole picture, because we also have to look about our current rate of interest on the money that we hold right now. Currently, what we've been seeing over the last 2 years is that our interest rate on the money that we hold has ranged from as low as 0.3% up to 2%. And what we've seen currently is anywhere between, let's just call it 1.97 to 2.14. So let's just call it 2%. So from that standpoint, we would actually receive a higher rate of interest financing it ourselves at the 3% than we would at issuing debt and getting only 0.5%. We also know from the fund balance standpoint that our fund balances are strong. And again, from the Economic Development Fund, those funds specifically for economic development projects, our general fund and our other funds are fairly strong. So the Economic Development Fund would not have much of an impact on those other county funds that deal with county operations. So from a debt capacity standpoint, that's the other part that we have to look at, is that if we issue debt, then that goes towards our debt capacity percentage. Now, there's 2 ways that we could do that. By law, we are allowed to. If we take debt, we can put that completely onto the tax levy, which would therefore increase people's tax bill. Now, the county is not required to put that levy onto the bill, but we can do that. So again, from a debt capacity and a tax levy standpoint, taking on the debt has a more negative impact than I believe than if we were to fund it ourselves. Therefore, it's my recommendation that we fund the project through our Economic Development Fund where we have the available amount to do so.
Any opinions,
I agree with Scott.
comments?
I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, why would you take on the debt and you already have the money to finance it and you're going to make a better return on your investment than it is sitting where it is now?
And if we needed to take out debt at a later date, we could do it at a later date.
Except that if you take out debt at a later date, Bug Tussle isn't paying the principal and interest. If you take out debt, Bug Tussle is paying the principal interest, doesn't cost the taxpayer anything. And you still have, then you still have this economic development money available for some type of project. Either, who knows what the economy's gonna look like at the end of this year into next year, or what are we gonna do with our budget? You know, there's a lot of variables out there when you take using your own money that you could possibly use for something else. Bug Tussle is gonna pay the principal and interest no matter what you do. So you're really not, you know, that's just my opinion, but.
I
Virginia.
agree with Scott's statement on it.
Anyone else?
I guess
Nope.
I don't understand what Mr. Romney's saying about by using our own money. Can you explain that more? Because I'm not understanding your point about if we go ahead and issue the debt.
If we borrow money from either, if we issue bonds or take a loan from a bank, the agreement we have with Bug Tussles, no matter how we finance it, they're gonna pay us back.
Mhm.
They're gonna pay the county's portion. So if we issue debt, it's not gonna cost the taxpayer any money. Or if we use our own money, it's not gonna cost them any money. My point is that if we spend $960,000 of economic development fund money now on broadband, 6 months from now, if some emergency comes up, we have to then dip into our general fund, or we have to go out and borrow money to fund that project where nobody's gonna pay any principal and interest on it? Or would we have our own money to fund that and let Bug Tussle take care of the broadband project? That's just my point, is that we don't have to use our own money, and it's still not costing us anything by using somebody else's money.
But if we use our own money, are we not earning more money?
Technically, but I don't know how you calculate 197,000 over 12 years.
Mr. Kunish calculated 3% over 12 years of $960,000.
But aren't they gonna be paying on a declining balance? They're not gonna pay 3% on 900,000 every year.
Not on every year, but again, over the course of 12 years, the 3% annual interest rate would then create $197,000 of interest income.
I don't know what kind of math they're using, but
Are we going to be looking for a motion on this today, or we're just having conversation over this?
This is only a discussion item, and part of the reason why I didn't want it to be an action item at this present time is, again, because we do not, if all of a sudden the county board were to say, no, we're not going to agree to the agreements with Bug Tussle, then the financing part of it becomes moot. But I wanted there to be an item on the agenda for discussion, so that way when the approval does happen, or let's say that we now know that in August it's going to happen, but we're going to meet prior to the August County Board meeting, then there has been at least some discussion prior to that decision.
And when that decision has to be made, will the Finance Committee have to recommend which source of funds we use? Is that up to us?
Correct. That's the reason why it's brought before the Finance Committee, is because this is not part of the budget process. So therefore, the Finance Committee, if the committee is going to say that we're either take debt or use the economic development funds, that would be a recommendation that the Finance Committee would then bring to the county board. That is why it is in this committee, for that discussion. So that way, that recommendation can be made to the county board.
Can we have Mr. Kunish give us more backup information? Because I still remain puzzled with some of the back and forth there.
Yes, we can do that. And again, Mr. Kunish is on vacation this week, but if there is additional questions, that is no problem.
Any other questions, comments? Dan, you're quiet back there.
It's a finance committee decision, but I agree with Mr. Vollenweider, and I agree with using our own funds. I mean, yes, Bug Tussle is paying the principal and so forth, but if you don't but we can't make 3% on this money any other way. I don't see it. So, it obviously is in the best interest of the county, in my opinion, to make some money on our money. If something changes and you need money down the road, well, then take out a loan. I can't foresee, you never know the future, but I can't foresee a situation where interest rates are going to get back to 3% anytime soon.
My lack of understanding is about where these funds sit today. If we have available funds in the
Yeah,
economic
this
development
is-
fund, is
this
that
is-
sitting in a bank somewhere? Or
Yes, this is sometimes called Dominion money.
Is it commingled with the rest of our general fund, or is it kept separate and they can't?
Well, it's commingled in a sense, but yet it is money that is separate, and it is sometimes referred to as Dominion money. That's money that we are paid, and it is, it doesn't have to be used specifically for economic development. That's just kind of been the thought process.
To answer your question, Supervisor Baker, there's the accounting separation and then there's the physical separation. For the most part, we have money that is in the local government investment pool. We have money that is in long-term debt instruments or investment instruments and the like. That is what we'll say is all put together into a larger fund. But then from an accounting standpoint, we're saying that X amount of money is in the general fund, X amount of money is in the roads and bridges fund, X amount of money is in the land information fund. So while they aren't separate bank accounts, from an accounting standpoint, we know that X amount of dollars is in this fund, though from a physical standpoint, it is in the same institution under one bank account.
Okay, that clears it up.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Moving on, vendor payments.
Are there any questions? As we know, as requested by the committee, we've begun the attachment of vendor payments. Again, I may be able to answer if there's some questions, but if there's some specific ones, we may have to then get back to you. But we will continue now as practice to attach those as well to the agenda packet, so that way committee members can view those as they wish. And this does not need approval. Supplemental payroll, which is the next item, would receive approval. And again, sorry, as a review, the reason why we don't ask for approval for the vendor payments is that this is a service or a product that we already receive. Therefore, because it's already been received, we will pay that bill. That helps two reasons. One, it prevents the delay, as well as because of time, there could be timing issues that if we waited for approval, that would therefore incur a late fee for the county. So we pay those bills. If there begins to be questions or concerns about a certain item, that's noted. And then if there's a concern about continuing to do that, we stop that practice and we wait for any type of, we'll wait for approval on specific items if there's a grave concern.
Okay, Doak.
I'm just trying to get familiar with it. There were several items in here that just caught my eye. There were several direct payments to individuals. 3 of them were kind of common. One was respite care, one was out-of-home care, and
Yep.
I think the other was kinship.
Yep, you're all talking about human services.
Okay.
And what those are is, those are services, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, is when we talk about kinship care, what happens is those are payments that are made from the county to a person that is taking on a client within the human services department, and so they receive compensation for providing that service. Same thing for respite. Think of respite as you're giving a normal I shouldn't say a normal person. That's not exactly the right way to say it.
They're an individual
but,
rather than a firm.
Right. You're giving them a break. So so we're paying that person to provide that break in care, to be providing that care for a short period of time. And for the out-of-home placement, what's happened is we have a client that is being taken out of their home and they're being placed someplace else, whether that's a foster care home or the like. And so therefore we are again paying for that service. So when you're seeing about specific individuals, especially like that is in the human services area, and what they are doing is they are providing care and services to a specific client.
Okay. And then the other one that I saw come up, something about let me find it here. subsidized guard. I saw that come up.
Subsidized guardianship, same type of
Oh,
thing.
guardianship.
Yep.
Okay, I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Is
you
this
only
part of the sheriff's?
No, yeah.
Okay.
No, that's fine. You're only given so many characters within the description
Sure,
line.
that makes
so
sense. That's-
subsidized guard is subsidized guardianship, and that's the same type of thing.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
The freezer and the fridge, something in there. Was that the purchase we approved? The prior month?
That's public health. That was under the 20,000. That is going to be reimbursed by COVID money for the public health department. That's again to be able to, the freezer and the fridge are able to hold vaccines and medicines and the like in the public health department. That is reimbursable by the state.
I thought we had approved some payment for,
You
moved
prob-
up the schedule or something for
You
the freezer?
I don't, it may have been moved up in the capital improvement plan, but again, we
wouldn't have voted
decided
on
to
it?
move forward. Why? Because since we had, because of the COVID thing, the state dollars are willing to pay for it, so therefore, we're buying the equipment.
Okay, I'm all done.
Thank you for the questions.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on. Approval of the supplemental payroll.
Have all the members reviewed the supplemental payroll and signed the document? Except for Mr. Massler? Okay,
Who needs it? Oh,
John does.
I'd make a motion to approve the payroll as presented.
Okay,
Second.
motion by Tom, seconded by Virginia.
I'll second it.
Virginia was first.
okay.
She was second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any other matters?
I do not have any other matters right now, Mr. Chairman. Again, the budget process will begin at the end of July for review. At the end of July, Mr. Kunish sends out budget instructions and budget worksheets to all the departments that we give them the month of August to put together their budgets and submit it to the county administrator for review. We try to have that in prior to Labor Day, because then I try to meet with departments depending on what their budget looks like, and then that budget is presented to the county board at the September county board meeting. Again, as a slight review, how I do the budget process may be different than how some other counties do the budget process. What has been my typical procedure regarding the budget is, again, departments put in their requests. I review those requests with departments, and then I present my budget to the county board. Some other counties, what the county administrator will do is they will work first through the committees prior to putting out a county budget. I purposely do not, and it's not because I don't want input. The purpose is that when I present a county budget, it is as apolitical a document as possible, in the respect that different departments and different committees may have different priorities, and therefore me putting forth a document where I have not necessarily gone through the committees does not provides the impression or the ability that this is what the administrator thought was in the best interest of the county without any type of political consideration. Again, by my presenting of the budget, the board themselves and the committees can then at that time try to push for any type of changes that they see fit, which they should, because ultimately the document that is approved is a county board document. But I just wanted for some of the newer members to understand my rationale as to why I may not necessarily go through other committees except the Finance Committee, because the Finance Committee ultimately makes the recommendation to the county board, but I don't go through the Public Health Committee or the Human Services Committee or any of those other committees, again, because I want to try to be as apolitical as possible. And if there are then certain initiatives that those committees or departments want to do, then that can be done at that time as the county board has those discussions and debates.
So Scott, I would presume then that the department heads in those respective committees will be having conversations prior to budget time with those committee members as to their needs, whether it be capital outlay or whatever. So then that committee, once it comes to the full county board, they would be able to have a voice for that department?
I would
assume.
county supervisors always have a voice for the county department, but different department heads may do it different ways. More often than not, what we've seen in the past is that the department heads have put together their budget and will submit that to the county administrator, but will also make aware to their committees what they are submitting to the county administrator and the rationale behind that. So therefore, if they're asking for additional information, or for that matter, and this happens actually more as a reaction than proactive, is that and I'll give an example, is at the last budget, I had requested the elimination of a position within a specific department. So I had done that because of thinking in the long-term interest. Then committee members of a specific department then discuss that and talk about the pros and cons regarding that, and then made a recommendation that that position be kept, which is absolutely fine. That's the way it should go, and that's the purview of the county board. Mine is a recommendation. The ultimate budget is your document.
All right, thank you.
Other than that, I have nothing else, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Tom?
Jeff, is there any update on the campground issue?
Yes, the campground is sold. We do have a check in hand, so that is complete, and it is the property of the Geels. And I do have it calendared so I can review it annually to make sure they're moving forward with their campground. So good luck to them.
Thanks for your effort on that, by the way.
We got her through.
Wonderful.
One other update I wanted to give you is that a while back we had a broadband grant with Door County Broadband. I understand that they actually got a permit now from the town of Lincoln, so I'm hoping to see this tower going up soon. So that's good news. Have not received the contracts on Bug Tussle yet, but we will start harassing the state, and we will have that for August. That is our pledge.
Okay. Very optimistic.
Well, we were actually hoping for July, and we're a little surprised why we haven't gotten it in July. But the last thing we wanted to do is, let's say we got it today, is not give county board supervisors sufficient time to look over the documents and feel comfortable about this. So, yes, it's our pledge to have it ready for August.
Have we received any word at all from the state on why?
I sent an email, but I have not heard anything as of yet.
Last I heard was near the end of June. They had to wind down some contests to the broadband grants, and that was done. And it sounded like and then as of last week, they were starting to push out some of the contracts. So I'm assuming they're in process, but it's July, people are on vacation. That could be part of it. But we will have them.
Well, I appreciate your optimism. You're going to go down to Madison and...
If I need to, I know exactly where Dennis Kleila's office is, so yes, if need be.
All right.
All right. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 7th, 8 a.m.
May I make a request, Mr. Chair? August 7th is the first Friday of August, correct?
Correct.
Through powers that are greater than mine, meaning my wife, that I will be on vacation that first week in August. I know that Mr. Kunish would be more than capable of doing it, but in that same respect, if the board for some reason would like to see my smiling face, then I would humbly request that we find a date that is not within the first week of August.
How about the 14th? The second Friday.
I like that.
too close to county board?
I don't see why it would be in that same respect. That August 14th, we would probably be approving whatever the financing part of the bug tussle agreement would be. So I don't think that would be an issue, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Let's move that one. Just hang on. Is that okay with everybody else?
Yes.
Fine.
Yes.
No objections? Done. All right. The next meeting after that would be September 4th. And that's, let's see, we could also, gee, Scott, you could bring your birthday cake from the day before for us.
Oh, that's scary that you actually know. I don't know. I think the birthday cake would be a little charred from all the candles. So
It's only 54.
yes. So
Settle for donuts.
Yeah, well, certainly would.
Settle for just about anything.
I'll say it this way, Mr. Chairman. Message received.
So the 4th is good for September for
Yeah.
everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Just hang tight, I'll put it in mine. Okay, September 4th, 8 a.m. Anything else before we ask for adjourn? Anything at all? Dan, no last speech? You want a sermon? You know, you're good at You're really good at talking.
You keep putting me on the spot. I try to reserve my comments and not take up so much time at these meetings, but,
I was expecting you to show up at one of these passing a hat, I mean.
well, I would do that, but if I did that at these meetings, I think was Nikki over there would be, probably pulling some sort of statue.
Yeah, he'd probably take it and split it 50-50 and
Just one more thing that Scott brought up.
Go ahead.
I don't know if it was at a executive meeting or a finance meeting. Have you heard anything more about the TIF district that Kewaunee is going to start doing? Did you notice how good that Marquette property looks now with that lawn in there and the fence down? It really
Took
looks
the fence
nice.
down today, yeah.
They're having the joint review board is meeting on Monday. So they'll start talking about actually the creation of the district, what type of projects they're looking at, and what type of projects they hope will take place as well.
It's
So that'll
amazing.
be on Monday, of which I'm a member of that review
It's
board.
just amazing what an
maybe-
improvement that makes just with that
Yep.
site leveled and cleaned up.
maybe you can tell us, Jeff, what happened. I don't, because I didn't hear what happened Monday night.
All council did is just voted to authorize moving forward with the TIP, and they're gonna have the joint review board, like Scott said, and continue the next phase. I guess just hear from the other taxing jurisdictions and give them, answer any questions they may have.
Okay.
Do you anticipate that there would be any opposition to it? I mean, other than, obviously, in the short term, I know there's
No,
some.
I mean, I know John's on the planning commission, and there was, conversations just trying to make sure that any developers are vetted and that, financially, that these projects can be funded. Just that it's not a big dream sheet of what could happen as opposed to what shall happen.
Mm-hmm.
So they anticipate that there will be developers, though, that will be.
There is a developer on the Lochner Hamachek property that's working with, and there's been some more, I guess, ideas regarding the Marquette property. I don't know of any developers for that, do you?
No, there was one looked at the property, but it's not big enough.
Really? It's a pretty good sized piece of property there.
Yeah,
isn't
they
it?
need it considerably bigger than that, so. So that parcel, the way it looks is it will not be in the TIF district. It'll be someplace else in the city.
Really?
Well, good luck. I hope it's successful. I'm sure it will be.
Thanks.
Okay. If nothing else, I would move for,
I just want to make
Virginia.
one comment where we were talking about the campground going through. I did actually talk with Cody on Wednesday because he invited domestic abuse out there, and he is asking Violence Intervention Project to come and take anything and everything out of the building that we might be able to give to somebody in need or that have a garage sale or something and raise some money. So when I was out there, he was cleaning up like crazy already. He said he had just signed paperwork about 2 hours earlier, and he already had big piles of stuff that he was getting rid of.
okay. Anything else? I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Tom. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. 9:31.